My friends bet I couldn't do better than you. I'm just proving them wrong. She smirked after I saw her sitting on another man's lap. I replied, prove this too. Then I took a photo, sent it to her parents with your daughter at her best, and left. She called panicking. Her dad had seen it. Hey everyone, before we get into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap that like button if you want more stories like this. I really appreciate it. The first fracture in what we had wasn't some explosive argument. It was a sigh. It happened about 2 weeks ago. I was on the couch wrapping up some code for a project at work. Laptop balanced on my knees. Chloe was next to me, absent-mindedly scrolling through her phone, her legs stretched across my lap. Then she exhaled. Long, dramatic, heavy. The kind of sigh designed to be noticed. What's wrong? I asked, not fully looking up from my screen. It's just Jessica's boyfriend surprised her with a weekend in Napa, helicopter tour and everything. She kept scrolling, thumb flicking sharply. And Mike just bought Lauren that Prada bag she's been posting about. The exact one. I remember what I felt in that moment. It wasn't jealousy. It was something closer to quiet fatigue. That's great for them, I said evenly. We had an amazing weekend too. That hike was perfect. She lowered her phone and looked at me. Not angry, not upset. Just theatrically disappointed. A hike, Alex. We packed sandwiches. She tilted her head slightly. It's just different energy. Your energy is very stable, very predictable. I should have pushed back. I should have said something real. But this wasn't new. I'd heard versions of it before. Chloe lived in a world built on vibes, on aesthetics, on perception, on how things looked online. My world was built on logic, consistency, and showing up. I always thought we complemented each other. Lately, though, I'd started to feel less like a balance and more like ballast in her hot air balloon, useful for keeping her grounded, but ultimately just weight. Her friends were a perfect reflection of her world. Jared, Mark, Jessica, Lauren. A galaxy of trust funds, half-formed influencer dreams, and a relentless need to look like they were winning at life. I was the anomaly. A software engineer who genuinely liked his job, valued his small circle, and found real satisfaction in solving problems. In their vocabulary, I was chill. I've since realized chill was just a polite synonym for boring. That's why the text I got that night made something in my chest tighten. Chloe, 8:47 p.m. Hey, change of plans. The group picked the air. Meet us there. Tables under Jared. Don't be late. It's going crazy tonight. The Air was a rooftop bar in the heart of the trendy district, famous for skyline views, $20 cocktails, and a door policy that operated like a social filter. I'd been once for a work event. It wasn't my environment, but Chloe loved it. She loved the glittering backdrop for photos. She loved standing inside velvet robes. I parked my sensible sedan in a lot a few blocks away, wincing at the digital parking fee as I paid it. In the elevator up, I adjusted my simple button down, already feeling underdressed. The bass hit me before the doors even opened. When they slid apart, I stepped into a wall of curated noise. Music thumping, glasses clinking, high-pitched laughter cutting through the air. The place was packed. I scanned the crowd, weaving between bodies until I spotted Jessica's hair and heard Lauren's unmistakable laugh. Their table was empty. Then I noticed the raised VIP section to the left, roped off, slightly elevated, furnished with plush loungers and its own server hovering nearby. That's where they were. Jared stood at the center like a ringmaster, one hand gripping a bottle of vodka resting in an ice bucket. And on his lap, tucked under his arm like she belonged there, was Chloe. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Black, sleek, razor-thin straps. She was laughing hard, head thrown back, her hand pressed against Jared's chest like it had always been meant to be there. The feeling that spread through me wasn't anger. It was cold, numb. It moved from my chest down into my fingers. I walked toward the rope. A broad-shouldered bouncer in a fitted black suit stepped in front of me. His arm extended, not aggressive, just immovable. This section is reserved. My girlfriend's at that table, I said. Chloe, she's with Jared. He glanced over then back at me. His face was neutral, professional. You're not on the list. They would have had to add you. I stood there, blocked by velvet and hierarchy, locked out in more ways than one. Chloe chose that exact moment to look over. Her laughter stopped. Our eyes met. I caught a flicker, surprise, maybe even guilt, but it vanished almost instantly, replaced by something cooler. Assessing. She leaned toward Jared and whispered something. He smirked, replied, and Mark let out a laugh. Then she slid off Jared's lap, smoothed down her dress, and walked toward the rope. Up close, I could smell her perfume, the expensive one I'd bought her for her birthday. It hit differently now, like a quiet betrayal. "Alex," she said, not warmly, not softly, just stating my name. "You made it." "Chloe," I replied. My voice sounded steady, even to me. The numbness was doing its job. "What's going on?" She leaned lightly against the velvet rope, positioning herself between two worlds. "Alex, look." She gestured behind her, toward Jared, the VIP section, the bottle service, the flashing lights, the entire glittering performance. "This is fun, but it's run its course." The words were so cliché, so obviously rehearsed, they barely penetrated the ice forming inside my chest. "Run its course." "We lived together," I said, evenly. It wasn't emotional, just factual. We had a lease with both our names on it, a shared grocery list taped to the fridge, a life that on paper was intertwined. She released that sigh again, the same dramatic exhale from the couch weeks ago. Only now I understood it for what it was. Performance. She glanced over her shoulder at her audience. They were watching with the rapt attention of people witnessing the final scene of a show they'd already spoiled for themselves. When she turned back to me, her lips curled into the most brittle, contemptuous smirk I'd ever seen. "My friends, bet me I couldn't do better than you," she said clearly, projecting each word toward the VIP section. A ripple of laughter followed. Jared lifted his glass in a mock toast. "I'm just proving them wrong." The sentence hung in the smoky air between us. It wasn't just cruel. It was small. 2 years of shared mornings and late-night talks reduced to the stakes of a shallow bet. The numbness inside me sharpened into something else. Clarity. Clean. Precise. I looked past her at Jared's smug, polished face, at Jessica holding her phone up, camera pointed directly at us, at the entire pathetic tableau arranged like a staged photo shoot. Then I looked back at Chloe. Her smirk dared me to react, to break, to beg. I didn't. I gave a slow nod, as if I were evaluating a mildly interesting problem at work. When I spoke, my voice was quiet, flat, and perfectly audible in the silence her declaration had carved out. "Prove this too." Her smirk faltered. Confusion flickered across her face. "What?" I already had my phone in my hand. I didn't rush it. I unlocked it calmly and opened the camera app, holding it steady. I saw the moment she understood. "Alex, don't you dare." The flash fired. For a split second, everything froze in white light. The image was perfect, stark, high resolution. Chloe caught mid-transition from cruelty to shock, the velvet rope cutting across the foreground. Jared sprawled behind her like royalty, her friends suspended in various stages of drunken amusement. It was context crystallized. I studied the screen briefly, taking in the evidence. Then I nodded once more, mostly to myself. "Got it." "Delete that," she shrieked, her polished composure shattering. She lunged toward the rope, but the bouncer instinctively shifted, his broad frame reinforcing the barrier she had chosen moments earlier. "Alex, I swear to God, delete it right now." I didn't respond. I slid my phone into my pocket, turned, and walked toward the elevator. Her voice chased after me. "You pathetic loser, come back here." But her words dissolved into the bass, into the laughter, into the city humming beyond the glass walls. The elevator doors closed on the sound of her fury. The silence inside was almost violent. I leaned back against the cool metal wall, the chill grounding me. My heart was pounding, but my mind was unnaturally still. The distance, the sighs, the stable comments, the subtle insults dressed up as observations. It had all been leading here, to a rooftop bar where I was the punchline of a bet. As the elevator descended, I didn't think about lost love. That had probably disappeared months ago. I thought about the photo in my pocket, and I thought about Ro. Bert, Chloe's self-made, no-nonsense father, a man who valued discretion and integrity above almost anything. 3 months ago, over a steak dinner, he'd looked me square in the eye and said, "You're good for her, Alex. You ground her." She had just proven to her friends that she could be ruthless. Now it was my turn to prove something to the one person whose opinion actually frightened her. Outside, the night air was cool and steady, a stark contrast to the compressed chaos upstairs. I didn't rush. I didn't storm off. I walked, measured, controlled. Back to the parking garage. The numbness had evolved into something functional. An operating system. Clean, logical, task-oriented. Heartbreak could wait. There were procedures to follow. I got into my car but didn't start it. I sat in the darkness, the only illumination coming from my phone screen. I opened the photo. It was even better than I'd imagined. The flash had captured everything in unforgiving detail. Jared's smug half-smile, the glint of cheap victory in her friend's eyes, and Chloe, especially Chloe, her face suspended between disdain and panic. The exact instant her control slipped, the entire story was there. My thumb hovered over the share button. The raw, instinctive part of me wanted to send the photo to every mutual friend we had, to post it publicly with her own mocking words as the caption. But that would have been playing her game. That was their currency. Public humiliation, curated drama, social maneuvering disguised as entertainment. I thought of Robert, Chloe's father, a man who had built his construction supply company from nothing. His hands were permanently rough, his handshake firm, his instincts razor sharp. He valued loyalty, integrity, directness. He despised theatrics, gossip, and what he called entitled pageantry. Chloe performed for her friends, but he lived for the rare, hard-earned nod of approval from her father. I scrolled through my contacts, past Chloe's name, and stopped at the one saved as Robert C. My thumb paused for only a second. This wasn't rage. It wasn't revenge. It was a report, a transfer of information to the appropriate authority. I composed the message the way I would write critical code. Clean, precise, impossible to misinterpret. Mr. Connolly, I regret to inform you that Chloe has ended our relationship tonight. I believe you should see the context in which she chose to do it. I valued your respect. Alex, I attached the photo. No emojis, no dramatic punctuation, no follow-up commentary. The image spoke for itself. I pressed send. A deep, strange silence filled the car. There was no undoing it now. I started the engine and drove toward the apartment. Our apartment, for what I knew would be the last time. The drive blurred into streaks of streetlight. My mind was blank except for the next 3 steps. Pack essentials. Secure documents. Leave. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The place felt immediately foreign, like a staged set from a life that had just been canceled. There was the couch where she'd sighed about hikes, the kitchen island where I'd made her pasta while she talked about Jessica's helicopter weekend. It all felt like props now. I went straight to the bedroom and pulled my old duffel bag down from the top shelf of the closet. I worked methodically. Laptop, charger, passport, the small lockbox containing my social security card and car title. From the dresser, I took only practical clothes, jeans, t-shirts, sweaters. I left the tailored shirt she'd bought me for her parents' anniversary dinner. It felt like a costume now. In the bathroom, I swept my toiletries into a dop kit. My toothbrush stood alone in the holder. Hers was still in her purse at the bar. Oh, and a night meant to prove something. The symbolism was almost too obvious. I paused in the bedroom doorway. On the dresser sat a framed photo from that anniversary dinner 6 months ago. Robert had his arm around Chloe's mother, a rare softness in his expression. Chloe stood between them, glowing. I was on the end, slightly stiff, but smiling. Robert's hand rested on my shoulder. "Take care of her, Alex." I didn't take the frame. I turned and walked out. I placed the duffel in my trunk. Before getting in the car, I did 2 final things. First, I opened my banking app and transferred my half of next month's rent into our shared account, the one she never checked, the one I used to handle the bills. I added a note: rent for October, lease termination to follow. No emotion, just business. Second, I opened my phone settings. I found Chloe's contact. I didn't delete it. I blocked her on every social platform I could think of, not out of anger. It was a firewall. She had chosen to make me an outsider. I was simply formalizing that status. Permanent. Secure. I drove to a mid-range hotel near the airport, the kind frequented by business travelers and people in transition. I paid for a week in cash from my emergency fund. The room was beige, bland, and blissfully quiet. I set my duffel near the desk. I took out my laptop but didn't open it. Instead, I sat on the edge of the bed and let the silence settle. The emotional wave I'd been holding back finally crested. It wasn't grief for her. It was grief for the future I'd believed in, the one I'd planned for, compromised for, built around. The betrayal wasn't just that she left. It was that she made a spectacle of everything I'd offered. My steadiness, my loyalty, my quiet love, all reduced to the losing side of a bet. I lay back against the stiff hotel bedspread and stared at the acoustic ceiling tiles. The injustice burned, clean, sharp, almost clarifying. I had been loyal, I had been committed, and I had been discarded like a prop in a cheap production. But beneath that burn, something else flickered, a cold, steady ember of power. I hadn't yelled, I hadn't begged, I hadn't thrown a punch or broken anything. I had taken a photograph, I had sent a message, I had walked away, and in doing so, I'd taken control of the narrative. This was no longer Chloe upgrades from her boring boyfriend. It was something else entirely, a new story, one that had just landed quietly but forcefully in the inbox of the only man whose opinion could truly alter the trajectory of her life. My phone lay face down on the nightstand, dark and silent. Hers, I imagined, was about to ignite like a battlefield. But that was no longer my concern. The firewall was up. For the first time in months, my mind, bruised but intact, was fully my own. The first light in the hotel room was pale and gray. I'd slept in fragments, the sterile sheets unfamiliar, but I'd slept. There was no twisting agony, just a hollow, exhausted acceptance. At 7 a.m., I checked my phone. Only work notifications, a weather update. The firewall held. I moved through the motions, showered, dressed in the clean, simple clothes from my duffel. I went downstairs and picked at the bland, complimentary breakfast. Rubbery eggs, lukewarm coffee, surrounded by quiet strangers with rolling suitcases and tired eyes. The normalcy of it all felt medicinal. No one knew me, no one cared. It was its own anesthetic. By 10 a.m., curiosity, cold, analytical, pushed its way in. I didn't want emotional satisfaction. I wanted assessment, situational awareness, like checking radar after a storm alert. I opened my settings and, with deliberate precision, temporarily unblocked Chloe's number. For a split second, nothing happened. Then my screen detonated. Notifications flooded in, missed calls, voicemail alerts. A relentless stream of texts cascading down faster than I could process. The first message had come in at 11:37 p.m. the night before. Chloe, 11:37 p.m. What did you do? 11:41 p.m. My dad just called me. He saw that. Alex, answer your phone. 11:53 p.m. Call him right now and tell him it was a joke. A prank. Say we were filming a stupid TikTok skit or something. 12:15 a.m. He's not answering my calls now. This isn't funny. 12:48 a.m. My card just got declined at the bar. What the hell did you say to him? I scrolled without emotion. As the hours passed, the tone shifted. 1:22 a.m. Jared was just a joke. It meant nothing. You know how my friends are. You're taking this way too seriously. 2:05 a.m. I'm at the apartment. Where are you? We need to talk. 3:11 a.m. You're trying to ruin my life. My dad manages my trust fund. He's talking about making me learn responsibility. This is your fault. 4 a.m. Alex, please, just apologize to him. Tell him we're back together. Say it was staged. I'll do anything. The final message had come in less than an hour ago. 8:57 a.m. Answer me or I'm coming to find you. 7 voicemails. I put the phone on speaker, poured a glass of tap water, and pressed play. Voicemail 1, 11:45 p.m. Her voice was shrill, breathless, fighting against pounding club music. Alex, what did you do? My dad saw that. You have to call him and tell him it was a joke, a prank. He's saying things about my allowance. Call him right now. Wind noise in the background. Maybe an Uber window cracked open. The hysteria had hardened into fury. You are such a petty little man. Do you know how humiliating that was? Sending that to my father. That was private. You've ruined everything over a stupid photo. Fix it. Voicemail 53:30 a.m. Now she was crying, but not softly. These were sharp, angry tears, the kind thrown when a privilege is revoked. He froze everything. My card, my deposit. He said if I have time to act like an idiot on a rooftop, I have time to learn the value of money. You need to come home. You need to tell him we're working it out. He liked you. He'll listen to you. The final voicemail, left 45 minutes ago, was the most unsettling. The tears were gone. Her voice was low, controlled. Ice over steel. Alex, this is your last chance. Be at the apartment by noon. We will call my father together. You will tell him you were drunk and jealous, and that you fabricated the whole thing. If you do this, we can maybe salvage something. If you don't, you'll regret it. I'm not losing my life because you can't take a joke. I deleted the voicemails one by one. Then I leaned back against the headboard. The hotel room's silence amplified the residue of her panic. Not once had she apologized. Not once had she acknowledged what she'd done. The problem, in her mind, wasn't betrayal. It was consequence. My phone rang. Her name flashed across the screen, paired with an old photo of her smiling on a beach somewhere we'd once felt happy. I let it ring 3 times. Then I answered. I said nothing. Alex. Her voice was strained, shredded from hours of yelling and crying. Yes. A shaky exhale. Oh, thank God. Listen, you need to come home right now. We have to call my dad together. No. Silence. What do you mean no? Alex, be reasonable. This is my future. You ended our future last night, I said calmly. This is the consequence. Consequence for what? For having fun? For living my life? The anger snapped back into place. You were always so judgmental. So small. You need to fix this. Tell him we're back together. We're not. She axed. Oded. Don't lie. Just tell him you overreacted. Say you're sorry. My dad respects you. He'll believe you. Just do this one thing. Goodbye, Chloe. Don't you dare hang up on. I ended the call. Then I immediately blocked her number again. The silence that followed felt cleaner, stronger. But the assessment wasn't complete. I had one mutual friend I trusted, Ben. He'd never been part of Chloe's inner circle. He was my college friend who'd moved to the city a few years back. Grounded, observant, allergic to drama. I opened our chat. Hey, Chloe and I are done. It's messy, you might hear some things. Just wanted you to hear it from me first. His reply came almost immediately. Ben, dude, I already heard. Are you okay? Me, I will be. What did you hear? The 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. A long pause. Ben, Jessica called my girlfriend, completely freaking out. Said Chloe's dad cut her off entirely. Frozen trust. Credit cards canceled. Everything. Apparently, he called it a masterclass in poor character and even poorer judgment. Said she could learn the value of $1 since she seemed to value so little else. A grim satisfaction, clean, sharp, almost surgical, settled in my chest. Those words were pure Robert. Brutal, direct, and perfectly aligned with the values he'd always lived by. Ben. Also, Jared's a real piece of work. After you left, he told Chloe it was getting too heavy and that he wasn't looking for a project. Left with another girl about an hour later. Chloe had to beg Jessica for an Uber home. I exhaled slowly. Ben and the friend group's pulling away. Mark called it a bad look. Jessica's pissed because she thinks it makes their whole squad seem trashy. Everyone's suddenly worried about their own image. Me, thanks for telling me. Ben, anytime. For what it's worth, you deserved way better. Let me know if you need a C. Ouch. I set the phone down. The karma wasn't mystical. It was mechanical. Cause and effect. She had traded steadiness for social currency, only to discover that currency was counterfeit, and her account had been shut down. She chose a man who saw her as entertainment and lost interest when the show ended. She prioritized the opinions of people who scattered the moment her collapse threatened their own reflections. I didn't feel joy. I felt a deep, weary validation. The world, indifferent and precise, was simply reflecting her choices back at her. A few hours later, one final update arrived. This time as a formal email to our shared inbox from property management. A lease violation warning. Excessive noise and disturbance reported the previous night. Complaint from the downstairs neighbor. A woman screaming and throwing objects between 3 o'clock and 5 a.m. I closed the laptop. The imbalance was correcting itself. The cruelty of the betrayal was being counterweighted by the inexorable math of consequences. My path was clear. Silence, distance, repair. Hers, glimpsed through the narrow keyhole of secondhand information, was unraveling into a frantic attempt to reclaim a privilege she'd never earned and had spectacularly incinerated. I went for a long walk. I didn't think about her. I thought about dinner, about a programming language I'd been meaning to learn, about the quiet satisfaction of a schedule that belonged entirely to me. The ember of power wasn't about her downfall. It was about my freedom. And with every step away from that hotel, that apartment, that life, the ember grew. Slow, steady, undeniable. 7 months is a long time when you're rebuilding. Long enough for a hotel room to become a temporary apartment. For that apartment to turn into a bright, airy condo with a lease signed in your name alone. Long enough to earn a promotion to lead Develo. Purr through focused, uninterrupted work. Long enough to rediscover the joy of Saturday mornings with a book and the soft whir of a coffee machine breaking the silence. Long enough to meet someone. Sarah was nothing like Chloe. Where Chloe was a performance, Sarah was a conversation. A graphic designer with dry wit and an observant calm. Our first date was at a bookstore cafe Chloe would have dismissed as quaint, her shorthand for boring. We talked for 3 hours. No agendas, no posing, no strategy. Just ease. On a crisp Saturday afternoon, we were at our favorite place, a rustic brewery with long communal tables, a dog-filled patio, and pretzels meant to be shared. I wore a worn flannel. Sarah had on a soft sweater, her hand resting lightly on my forearm as she finished a story about a difficult client. I was, for the first time in over a year, simply happy. The past felt like a badly written book I'd returned to the library long ago. The universe, with its impeccable sense of timing, decided that was the moment to turn a page. I saw her first. The change was startling. Chloe stood on the patio in a cheap-looking puffer jacket, hair pulled back in a careless ponytail. She looked tired. Older. She was with Mia, a peripheral friend from the old group who always seemed apologetic for existing. They were seated 2 tables away. Chloe's eyes did their familiar sweep, scanning for recognition, for relevance. Then they landed on me. Shock flashed across her face, followed by a messy cascade of hope, desperation, and a faint spark of the vanity she used to wear so confidently. She hissed something to Mia, who flinched and began threading through the tables toward us. I felt myself go still. Sarah noticed instantly. She followed my gaze. "Someone you know?" she asked, quietly. "My ex," I said just as softly. From the rooftop. "Tation." She didn't pull away, didn't stiffen. She simply nodded once, composed, her hand still resting where it was. An anchor. Chloe stopped at the edge of our table. She didn't look at Sarah at all. Her eyes locked on me. "Alex. Hi." Her tone aimed for casual and missed badly. "You look good, Chloe," I said, offering a single nod. "Nothing else?" The silence stretched. She shifted her weight, clearly waiting for more. Questions, reactions, anything she could grab onto. "Look, she faltered, her rehearsed lines collapsing under the weight of my calm. She tried again, forcing a tremor into her voice. "I've had a lot of time to think," she said softly. "A lot of time alone." She leaned on the last word, waiting for sympathy. None came. What I said on the roof, those were my words. I was trying to impress people who don't matter, people who aren't even around anymore. She flicked a brief, dismissive glance at Sarah before refocusing entirely on me. "You mattered. We mattered." I didn't respond. I simply waited, my expression neutral, patient like I was listening to a presentation that had already run over its time. Her composure thinned. "My dad, he still hasn't reinstated everything. He says I need to demonstrate sustained maturity." She spoke the phrase as if it were an unreasonable burden. "If he knew we were talking, if he saw we could be civil, it would help. It would prove stability." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Maybe we could get coffee sometime. Just talk. Start fresh. The real you and me. No noise. There it was. Not an apology. A proposal. I wasn't a person to her. I was leverage. A character reference she could submit to regain funding. Sarah broke the tension, not with words, but with a subtle squeeze of my arm. Not possessive. Not threatened. Just steady. I'm here. I looked at Chloe. Really looked at her. The faint strain. At the corners of her eyes. The inexpensive coat. The hollow space where her polished confidence used to sit. I felt nothing. No anger. No pity. Just absence. Chloe, I said calmly, the same tone I used to conclude a meeting at work. That's not going to happen. She flinched. But you were right about one thing that night, I continued, cutting her off gently. I glanced at Sarah. She met my eyes with quiet understanding. I placed my hand over hers on the table. Simple, instinctive. You could do better than the guy I was back then, the guy who tolerated disrespect to keep the peace. I turned fully back to Chloe. So I did better. Her eyes widened slightly. I built a life that doesn't make room for drama, or bets, or proving anything to cruel people. I gestured lightly around us, the warm hum of the brewery, the relaxed laughter, the woman beside me. This is my life now. It's calm. It's real. I held her gaze evenly. I hope you build a good life for yourself, Chloe, honestly. But it won't include me in any capacity. The carefully assembled mask cracked, revealing the entitlement underneath. Her gaze darted between my face and my hand resting over Sarah's. The realization landed hard. I hadn't just moved on. I'd moved up. So that's it? Her voice sharpened, brittle enough to draw glances from nearby tables. After everything we had? After you ruined my relationship with my father? You're just going to sit here with your little rebound and act like I don't exist? The word rebound dripped with venom. Sarah didn't react. She watched Chloe with detached curiosity, like she was observing an unstable case study. I didn't engage. I didn't defend. I didn't argue. I stood. I pulled out Sarah's chair with quiet courtesy, left enough cash on the table to cover the bill, and a generous tip. I looked at Chloe one final time. There was no anger in my expression, no triumph, only finality. We're done here, I said evenly. I took Sarah's hand. We walked away together, weaving through tables toward the exit. We didn't look back. Behind us, I heard a strangled sound of frustration, quickly softened by Mia's pleading whisper. But it was already fading, just another background noise in a day that no longer revolved around her. Outside, the autumn air was crisp and clean. Sarah squeezed my hand. You okay? I inhaled deeply, filling my lungs with cool, unburdened air. I looked at her, at the intelligence and compassion in her eyes, and felt the last trace of that rooftop night dissolve completely. I'm perfect, I said, and meant it. Actually, I'm starving. Let's go get that Italian place we talked about. As we walked toward the car, my mind wasn't on Chloe, not on her frozen accounts, not on her frantic messages, not on the hollow look in her eyes. It was on the way Sarah laughed when something genuinely surprised her. It was on the layered notes of the Amarone wine I planned to order. It was on the quiet contentment of a Sunday with no storms gathering in the distance. Closure didn't come from a speech or revenge. It came from walking away without turning around, toward a future bright enough that the shadow of the past simply couldn't reach it anymore. She became a footnote, a lesson, a closed door, and I was already miles down the road, hand in hand with my peace, never once considering knocking again. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What did you think of this story? Let me know in the comments.